The arrival of the Empire. It started like any ordinary day on Earth. People were going to work, children were attending schools, and the hum of life carried on as it always did. But far beyond the clouds, in the cold silence of space, something was approaching, a threat that would change everything. Deep in a small observatory on the outskirts of Arizona, Dr. Ethan Carter stared at his monitor, his coffee untouched beside him. At first, he thought the readings were a glitch. The numbers didn't make sense. The object moving toward Earth was enormous, unlike anything ever seen. It wasn't an asteroid, nor was it a natural celestial body. It was something else. His heart pounded as he recalculated the trajectory. This thing was heading straight for Earth. "Call everyone." Ethan shouted to his assistant, Lisa, his voice trembling. "This is no drill. This is real." Across the globe, observatories and space agencies picked up the same readings. Within hours, the skies were filled with panic. News channels broadcast urgent bulletins, showing blurry images of an enormous structure entering Earth's orbit. The object was larger than any space station humanity had ever built, more massive than even the wildest science fiction movies could imagine. It wasn't long before the object revealed itself. Hovering just beyond the reach of Earth's atmosphere, it stopped. The colossal ship gleamed like polished metal, covered in strange markings that glowed faintly. Its edges were sharp, almost aggressive, and its size alone cast a shadow that seemed to dim the sun. The world held its breath. Then came the voice. A deep booming sound filled the skies, resonating in every corner of the planet. It wasn't coming from speakers or radios. It was as if the voice was everywhere, vibrating through the air itself. "PUVLE of Earth," the voice began, cold and commanding. "We are ETE Galactic Empire. Your planet HAS BEE and OBZ or VG, and EFO human to be lacking. You are hereby ordered to surrender all power to US. You have 1 Earth Day to CO MPI. Resistance will in your complete and to your destruction." The world fell into chaos. In cities, people flooded the streets, unsure whether to run or hide. Governments scrambled to respond, their leaders panicking behind closed doors. News anchors struggled to keep calm as they relayed the terrifying message to viewers. Social media exploded with videos of the alien ship and countless theories about what it wanted. Some prayed for salvation, while others prepared for the worst. On the other side of the globe, in a secret underground facility, military leaders and scientists gathered. The United Nations had activated its emergency response team, calling in experts from every country to decide humanity's next move. Some argued for surrender, believing there was no way Earth could fight against a force so advanced. Others, like General Marcus Hayes, were adamant that humanity should resist. "We can't just roll over and give them our planet." Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "This is Earth. This is our home. We fight." "Fight with what?" An older politician countered. "We don't even know what they want or how to stop them. One blast from that thing could wipe us out." As the debate raged on, Dr. Meera Patel, a brilliant astrophysicist, spoke up. "We don't have time to argue. Their technology is clearly far beyond ours, but nothing is invincible. If we can analyze their ship, maybe we can find a weakness. It's a slim chance. But it's better than doing nothing." Her words brought a moment of silence. Even Marcus hesitated. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. Let's find a weakness. But we need a plan. Fast." Meanwhile, the alien ship sent another message, this time showing its power. A massive beam of light shot out from the vessel, striking the moon. The blast shattered a portion of the lunar surface, sending debris hurtling into space. The message was clear. Earth was defenseless against such power. In a small apartment in Tokyo, a young girl named Akiko stared at the sky through her telescope. She wasn't a scientist or a soldier, just an ordinary teenager who loved stargazing. But even she could see the ship's devastating display. Are they going to destroy us? She whispered to herself, her hands trembling. She didn't know it yet, but ordinary people like her would soon play a critical role in humanity's survival. As the day turned into night, the countdown began. People gathered with their families, unsure if it would be their last moments together. Religious leaders led prayers, while some tried to flee to remote areas, hoping to escape what felt inevitable. Above them all, the alien ship loomed silently, its glowing lights a constant reminder of the ticking clock. Earth had 24 hours to decide, surrender or fight. In the final moments of the day, Mira and her team uncovered something. The ship's shields, while impenetrable to most weapons, seemed to flicker at certain intervals. It was faint and irregular, but it was there, a possible vulnerability. Mira didn't have time to celebrate the discovery. She picked up her phone and called General Hayes. "We might have a chance," she said, her voice firm despite the fear in her chest. "But it's going to take everything we've got." The Council of Earth. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the night sky felt darker than ever before. With the shadow of the Galactic Empire looming over Earth, global leaders called for an emergency summit. In cities, small groups gathered in quiet rooms, listening to the details unfold over radio broadcasts and television reports. Everywhere, people waited for a sign, an answer to the question on everyone's mind. What now? In a secure underground facility in Geneva, the heart of the United Nations, military generals, scientists, political leaders, and strategists gathered around a large round table. The walls were covered with live satellite feeds showing the massive alien ship in Earth's orbit. Each feed was framed with a countdown. 12 hours until the Empire's ultimatum expired. General Marcus Hayes stood at the head of the table, his face grim and tired. He'd fought in countless wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. Behind him, large screens displayed live feeds from the military command center, where Earth's forces were stationed. With Earth's defenses almost non-existent, Marcus could only watch and wait. "We've gathered the best minds on Earth," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear. "Our options are limited, but we can still fight back. Dr. Patel has discovered a flaw in their shield system. We believe it's our best shot." Dr. Mira Patel stood beside him, her face tight with exhaustion. She was the one who had found the potential vulnerability in the alien ship, but even she wasn't sure it would work. "The shields are powered by a unique energy source. From the data we've gathered, we believe it weakens at certain intervals. If we can launch an attack during one of these weak points, we might be able to breach the outer defenses long enough to deliver a disabling blow." "Great," a European diplomat named Thomas Reeve muttered sarcastically. "So we hope they happen to be weak at the right moment. What happens if we fail?" Mira looked him in the eyes. "Failure means we will lose everything. This is our only chance." Reeve's lips tightened, but he said nothing more. The room fell silent again as the harsh reality set in. Earth was on the brink of collapse, and every moment was critical. "Do we have enough firepower?" another general, Colonel Richards, asked, leaning forward. "The Empire's ship is far beyond anything we've ever faced. Even our most advanced weapons couldn't scratch its surface." Marcus shook his head. "No, we don't, but we can't fight them the way we fight each other. We'll have to use what we've got and trust that Mira's theory is correct. We can't afford to wait any longer." The tension in the room thickened, and Mira knew they were all thinking the same thing. Is this really possible? But before anyone could speak again, a large screen flickered, and a new transmission came through. A representative from the Chinese government, Dr. Wei Lei, appeared on the screen. She looked shaken, but her voice was resolute. "General Hayes, Dr. Patel," she said, her voice steady. "We've been working on a backup plan. While we try to find a way to disable the shields, we're preparing a secondary defense, a network of satellite-based lasers that could potentially target the mothership's engines. It's not perfect, but it might slow them down, enough to buy us time." Marcus's eyes narrowed, and Mira felt a spark of hope. If we can slow them down, that could give us the edge we need. But we'd have to coordinate the strike perfectly. Which is why we need to move now, Dr. Wei continued. Every moment counts. The council quickly agreed to combine both strategies. The satellites would target the mothership's propulsion systems, and at the same time, the military would prepare an assault to deliver a powerful EMP strike during the shield's vulnerability. It was a coordinated effort, one that had never been attempted before, and it was their only shot at survival. As they prepared for the mission, the conversation turned to the matter of global unity. Earth had always been divided, but this threat had forced nations to work together in ways they never had before. For the first time, humanity's differences seemed to fall away. People didn't care about borders. They cared about saving their planet. "I want this to be clear," General Hayes said, looking around the room. "This isn't just a military fight. This is everyone's fight. It doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. We are all in this together. Now let's get this done." In the minutes that followed, the room buzzed with activity. Military leaders began finalizing attack plans, and scientists worked feverishly to improve the EMP device. Mira spent the next few hours locked in a lab, reviewing data and making adjustments to the strike plan. She was exhausted, but she didn't have the luxury of rest. The fate of Earth depended on her work. Outside, the night sky seemed to grow darker, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. People everywhere knew the Empire's deadline was fast approaching. The world was united by fear, but also by a fierce determination to protect their home. And then, as if to remind them of the stakes, the alien ship moved. It wasn't much, just a small shift in its position, but it was enough. The ship's massive presence had once been an ominous silhouette against the stars, but now it loomed even closer, filling the sky. Earth's leaders watched in horror as it began to glow, brighter than before. They had no way of knowing what would happen next, but they knew one thing for certain: they had run out of time. In the underground bunker, Marcus turned to Mira. "Are we ready?" She looked at him, her face pale but determined. "We have one chance. If we fail, Earth won't survive. But if we succeed, it could change everything." The countdown on the screen flashed. 4 hours remaining. The Earth had no choice but to trust in its final plan, and the fight for humanity's survival began. Humanity's sole warning. The clock was ticking. The countdown displayed on screens around the world grew smaller and smaller. 24 hours, then 12, then just 4. Every second that passed brought Earth closer to either survival or total annihilation. The combined forces of humanity's military and scientific communities had come together, each playing their part, each working in desperation to ensure that the human race would continue. But deep down, no one was entirely sure if it would be enough. General Marcus Hayes stood in front of a map filled with strategic points. Beside him, Dr. Mira Patel, still exhausted from hours of work, reviewed the final data on her tablet. The Empire's ship had shifted its position, making it clear that they weren't just hovering. They were preparing for something. "They're moving into attack position," Marcus muttered under his breath. His fingers tapped the map, tracing the path the enemy ship might take. "It's almost like they're waiting for us to act. They know we're coming." Mira swallowed, her throat dry. The Empire's presence was both intimidating and overwhelming. Yet she couldn't afford to be scared now. If their plan was to succeed, they needed to act without hesitation. "They won't wait much longer. We need to strike before they fire." Outside the bunker, the streets were filled with anxious civilians, some trying to make their way to underground shelters, others glued to their screens, watching every broadcast as humanity's final stand unfolded. There were no guarantees, only hope, and hope was quickly running out. In the few remaining hours, Mira and her team finalized the calculations, tweaking the EMP strike system that would disable the mothership's shields. The military had gathered its finest pilots, ready to launch a series of devastating strikes on the Empire's propulsion systems. Everyone knew that success was a long shot, but the stakes were too high to back down. As they prepared for the mission, a message arrived from the Galactic Empire. This time, it wasn't a booming voice. It was direct, chilling, and far too clear. Humanity, you have chosen to resist. You have chosen your path. You have one Earth day to surrender. You have failed to comply. Prepare for your extinction. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine as the message was broadcast across the world. There was no offer of peace, no compromise. The Empire's threat was unmistakable. "That's it," Marcus said quietly, watching the message. "They're done negotiating. It's up to us now." The world seemed to hold its breath. The air itself felt tense as humanity geared up for the impossible. But even in the darkest hour, there was a sense of unity. Governments that had never spoken to one another were now in constant contact, ensuring that the military's every move was in sync with global defense strategies. From the United States to India, from Europe to the distant corners of Africa, Earth's people came together in the face of their greatest threat. There were no more boundaries, just humanity. Mira turned to General Hayes. "It's time," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Our attack window is closing fast." Marcus nodded, his eyes hard with resolve. "Let's make it count." As the team made their final preparations, the tension reached its peak. The EMP strike was the last hope. But Earth had another weapon, one that no one had expected. In the shadows of the military complex, a group of civilians had been working, quietly but resolutely. They were part of the resistance movement that had formed in the wake of the Empire's arrival. They weren't soldiers, scientists, or diplomats. They were ordinary people. Parents, teachers, engineers, and they had a plan of their own. Earlier that day, while the world's leaders and military forces focused on the mothership, the resistance had intercepted a transmission from a group of alien defectors within the Empire's ranks. The defectors had communicated their dissatisfaction with the Empire's brutal tactics and warned of an even greater danger, a second, more powerful fleet that was preparing to reinforce the mothership. The humans had no idea how far along the Empire's plans were, but this warning was enough to make it clear. Earth was about to face an even larger threat than anticipated. The message was encrypted, but the defectors had embedded a crucial piece of information within it, something no one had noticed at first. Hidden in the transmission was a faint signal, barely detectable, but unmistakable in its meaning. Earth was not alone. Mira's eyes widened when she reviewed the intercepted data. "General, I think we've missed something," she said urgently. "The Empire's second fleet is on its way. But there's more. There's another fleet, one that's been tracking the Empire's movements. A resistance force, and they're coming to help us." Marcus blinked in disbelief. "Are you saying that someone else is out there, fighting against the Empire?" "I think so," Mira replied. "This might be our one chance, but we have to move fast. If we can get the message out, maybe we can make them see that Earth isn't just going to give up. Maybe they'll join the fight." Without hesitation, Marcus activated the global emergency broadcast. "Attention, Earth," he began, his voice echoing through every speaker, every screen, everywhere. "We stand united, and we fight for our home. To the galaxy, this is our final warning. We will not surrender. We will not bow down. Earth is our planet, and we will protect it at all costs. We stand ready to defend ourselves, and we will rise up together." The broadcast was a beacon of defiance. It carried across the Earth and into space, a signal to any who would hear it. As the message rippled outward, it reached distant corners of the galaxy, places humanity had never imagined, but places that perhaps had been watching for this moment. And then, a crackling voice interrupted the broadcast, a voice from the stars, speaking in a language foreign to humanity, but still full of meaning. It was the voice of an ally. "We heard your message, Earth. We will stand with you." In that instant, Humanity's fate shifted. Earth wasn't alone anymore. The mission to strike back. The world's atmosphere seemed to change in an instant, like the calm before a thunderstorm. In the hours after the defiant broadcast, a new hope stirred in humanity's hearts. The message from the distant fleet wasn't just a message of encouragement, it was a promise. Someone, somewhere, beyond Earth's small corner of the galaxy, was coming to help. But time was still running out, and the Empire's ship loomed in orbit, waiting to strike. General Marcus Hayes stood in the command center, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the large digital map on the wall. It was a map of the galaxy, a galaxy that felt much smaller now. The Empire's mothership remained a colossal presence above Earth, and it was only a matter of hours before the alien forces decided to launch their final assault. "General," the clock's ticking, one of his officers, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, said, her voice strained with the weight of the situation. "We're ready to execute the first phase of the EMP strike, but without the backup from that resistance fleet, our chances are slim." Marcus nodded grimly. "We take the chance anyway. We don't have a choice." Dr. Mira Patel, sitting beside him at a nearby console, looked over the schematics of the alien ship on her tablet. The vulnerability in the shield system was real, but it was fragile, too fragile. One mistake, and the opportunity would vanish. "I've calibrated the EMP strike," Mira said, pressing a button to display a small diagram of the plan on the screen. "Our strike team will launch from multiple points, using stealth technology to hit as close as possible. At precisely the right moment, they'll send a burst strong enough to disable the mothership's shields." The team had spent hours preparing the attack, and now it was time to launch. But Mira couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. They had a window to strike, but the enemy ship's defenses were unpredictable. Despite all the calculations, she couldn't fully account for what the Empire might do next. The aliens had been silent since their last threat. Too silent. "General, we've just received an encrypted transmission from the fleet that contacted us," Sarah said, breaking the silence. "It's from the resistance force. They're just beyond our solar system and are ready to join the attack." Marcus' eyes hardened. "It's time. We make our stand." The plan was set into motion. The EMP strike would be launched in 3 phases. The first, a group of stealth bombers would penetrate the outer defenses, deploying smaller EMP bursts at precise intervals to weaken the shields over time. The second phase would be the main EMP burst, timed with the weakness in the ship's energy flow. The final phase involved the elite human strike team, soldiers, scientists, and engineers, who would board the damaged mothership and plant the device that could disable its core systems. As the first wave of bombers climbed into the sky, the tension was palpable. Mira sat in the command center, monitoring the strike in real time. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she watched the tiny dots representing the bombers move toward their target. Every minute felt like an eternity. General Hayes stood with her, watching the same screens. "We're doing it," he said quietly, his voice filled with determination. "This is it." As the bombers neared the mothership, the shields flickered, the first sign that their theory was correct. The weak spots in the Empire's shield system were beginning to show. Mira let out a sigh of relief, but it was only temporary. The real test was coming. "Phase 2, she said. "Launch the main EMP." One by one, the bombers released their payloads, sending pulses of energy toward the mothership's shields. The screens flared bright with energy as the first EMP burst struck. For a moment, nothing happened. And then a ripple spread across the ship's surface, as if the Empire's fortress was recoiling in pain. The shields weakened. It was working. The mothership's defenses were being cracked. But just as the humans began to feel a sense of triumph, a horrifying sound echoed across the command center speakers, a deep, bone-chilling roar that reverberated from space itself. The Empire was reacting. A wave of energy pulsed outward from the ship, sending shockwaves through Earth's atmosphere. The lights in the command center flickered, and the data screen scrambled as the pulse reached Earth's surface. "They're countering," Mira shouted, trying to maintain control of the system. "The mothership's retaliating. Their weapons are charging." The countdown to launch the final phase was nearing zero. The EMP had weakened the shields, but now the ship was preparing to retaliate. It had to be now. The team had to be in position before the counterattack was fully unleashed. In an underground hangar, the elite strike team was ready. Dressed in advanced armor and equipped with the latest technology, they boarded their ships, flying machines designed to pierce the atmosphere quickly, avoiding enemy sensors. This was the most dangerous part of the operation, getting close enough to deliver the final blow. As they rocketed toward the mothership, the ship's weapons began to activate, launching deadly beams toward Earth. The strike team's mission was clear: disable the ship's defenses and plant the device that would cripple its core. "We're going in," Commander Jackson Walker, leader of the strike team, said through his helmet's communicator. "Brace yourselves." The team zipped through the sky, dodging incoming fire from the Empire's defensive cannons. Their ships were faster than the Empire's drones, but they were not invincible. The team had to make it to the mothership's core, where they could plant the EMP disruptor that would stop the Empire's assault for good. As they approached the mothership, the glowing mass of metal became even more terrifying up close. The Empire's ship filled the sky, dwarfing the strike team's ships. But they were too close to turn back now. "Steady, everyone," Jackson called out. "We've got one shot. Make it count." The strike team finally breached the mothership's outer hull, and they descended into the belly of the beast. Their task was simple: plant the EMP and escape before the ship's core reacted. But as they moved deeper into the ship's interior, they encountered something unexpected: alien soldiers. The Empire wasn't going down without a fight. Gunfire erupted as the strike team fought their way through corridors, dodging blasts from the enemy. Mira's voice echoed in Jackson's earpiece, her voice strained with urgency. "You're running out of time. The ship's main reactor is going critical." Jackson didn't answer. He couldn't afford to waste time. The EMP had to be planted, and the team had to escape. The fight was brutal, but the strike team fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of the planet depended on their success. As Jackson reached the core of the mothership, he placed the EMP disruptor into its power system, setting the countdown to its activation. "EMP activated. Mission complete," Jackson said into his communicator, his voice filled with relief. But the escape was far from over. Behind him, the mothership's core began to rumble, signaling the beginning of the Empire's final retaliation. The countdown to Earth's salvation was running out. The enemy within. The ground beneath the strike team rumbled, and the blinding lights of the mothership's core flickered ominously. Jackson Walker gritted his teeth and gave a quick glance over his shoulder, where the rest of the team was fighting their way through an onslaught of alien forces. Time was slipping away. They had completed their mission, but now the clock was ticking toward their own survival. The EMP disruptor had been successfully activated, but it was only a matter of seconds before the mothership realized something was wrong. "Move out now," Jackson barked, his voice low and intense. "We've got a way out, but we need to move fast." His team sprinted down the long metallic corridors, firing back at the alien soldiers who continued to pursue them. The Empire's forces were relentless. He could feel the heat of their weapons behind him as they pushed toward the exit. But as the team neared the escape hatch, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered once more, this time with a strange rhythmic pattern, and the walls around them seemed to hum with energy. Jackson's instincts screamed that something was off. The EMP was supposed to disable the mothership's core systems, yet the ship wasn't losing power. Its pulse was growing stronger. "That wasn't supposed to happen." Mira's voice crackled through the communicator. "Jackson, their main reactor is still online. It shouldn't be possible." "I don't know how, but it's still running," Jackson replied, his heart pounding in his chest. "We need answers. What did we miss? Before Mira could respond, the walls around them seemed to shift, and a deep voice echoed through the corridors, one that wasn't part of the mothership's automated systems. The voice was cold, menacing, and unmistakably alien. "You think you've won, Earthlings," the voice boomed, vibrating through the metal walls. "You have no idea what you've done. You've awakened something far worse than the Galactic Empire itself." Jackson froze. The team paused in their tracks, confusion spreading across their faces. "What the hell is that?" One of the soldiers, Lieutenant Kelly Voss, whispered. Mira's voice came through again, but now there was a tremor of fear in her tone. "The Empire is ancient, but this ship was never fully theirs. The true masters of this vessel are not the Empire, but an even older race, one that has been lying dormant for centuries. When you triggered the EMP, you awoke them." "Awoke who?" Jackson demanded, his grip tightening on his weapon. He could feel the tension mounting as the walls seemed to close in on them. "The true rulers of this ship are not its commanders," Mira explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a prison, and what you've triggered is the release of a long-imprisoned alien species. They've been lying dormant within the ship's systems, waiting for the right moment to reassert control." Jackson's mind raced. He had no idea what they were dealing with, but the urgency in Mira's voice was enough to make his stomach drop. If they didn't escape soon, the ship would not only be their tomb, it would be the launchpad for something far more terrifying than the Empire. The corridors around them twisted and turned as the strike team ran. The air began to feel thick with the heavy hum of the ship's systems. The alien soldiers that had been pursuing them before were now gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. A darkness had descended over the ship, and the team felt like prey being hunted by an unseen force. Then it happened. A door at the end of the hallway slid open, and a figure stepped into view, a towering skeletal being, its eyes glowing with an unnatural red light. The creature's form was almost translucent, as though it were composed of dark energy rather than flesh. "Get back," Jackson shouted, raising his weapon. The creature didn't move, but its voice was deafening, a deep, resonant growl that sent a chill down the spine of everyone who heard it. "You awakened us, but you are not worthy of the power that lies within this ship. You are insects in our path. And now, you will be eradicated." Jackson's mind raced. This wasn't just a normal alien. It was something far older, far more dangerous. The creature's appearance was like nothing he had ever seen before, its form shifting between shadows and light, as though reality itself struggled to contain it. It was clear now. The mothership wasn't just a weapon. It was a prison for something far worse. "Fight," Jackson ordered, pulling the trigger of his weapon. A barrage of fire erupted, but the shot seemed to pass right through the creature, as though it were not entirely there. The being laughed, a low guttural sound that made the team's blood run cold. "You cannot harm us, human. We are beyond your primitive technology." The creature moved with terrifying speed, a blur of shadows. It reached for one of the soldiers, Lieutenant Voss, with an unnatural swiftness. Voss screamed, but the scream was cut short as the creature's hand passed through her chest, lifting her off the ground like a doll. "Kelly!" Jackson screamed, rushing forward, but it was too late. The soldier's body crumpled to the floor, lifeless. Jackson's heart pounded as the creature turned toward him, its eyes glowing brighter with every passing second. "You should have stayed hidden, Earthlings. Now you will witness the true power of the Empire's prisoners." The team fought desperately, but with each passing moment, the alien forces seemed to become more insurmountable. Jackson and his team had been sent to disable the Empire's ship, but they had awakened something far more terrifying. The creature, now clearly aware of their every move, slowly advanced toward them, its form flickering like a bad signal. "We need to get to the escape pods," Jackson said, his voice filled with determination. "We can't fight this thing, not yet. We have to warn Earth." But just as they turned to flee, the ship's systems began to change again. The walls shifted, and the floor beneath them seemed to open up. It was as if the ship itself was alive, fighting back against the intruders. Jackson and his team bolted, but the creature was closing in. And with each step it took, they realized that the ship itself had become their enemy, an entity far beyond the power of the Galactic Empire, now awakened and angry. The final stand. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It had become a living nightmare. Every step Jackson and his team took felt like a countdown to their inevitable demise. The hulls twisted and warped, as if the ship itself was actively reshaping, guiding them toward their doom. But in the chaos, a singular thought clung to Jackson's mind. Survive. They had to escape. They had to warn Earth. The creature that had emerged from the shadows was not only hunting them, it was controlling the ship's movements, as if it had fused with the very essence of the mothership. The air grew heavier with each passing second, filled with a palpable tension that made it harder to breathe. The team's weapons, once their primary defense, were now useless. Bullets passed harmlessly through the creature, and its every movement seemed to bend reality itself, warping the space around it. "We can't outrun it," Lieutenant Chen shouted, breathless, as they sprinted down another twisting hallway. "It's too fast." Jackson pushed forward, his muscles burning, but his resolve stronger than ever. "We don't need to outrun it. We just need to buy time." But the ship had already anticipated their next move. The emergency exit hatch that had been their last hope now lay sealed, the door thick with an unbreakable barrier that pulsed with unnatural energy. Behind them, the creature's voice echoed again, like a death knell reverberating in their bones. "You think you can escape? The ship has no exit for you, humans. There is no place where you can hide. You will remain here, with us." The last word sent a chill through Jackson. Us? This was no mere alien being. It was a leader, a manifestation of something far older and far more malevolent than the Galactic Empire itself. The creature wasn't just controlling the ship. It was the ship. With no time left to argue, Jackson issued a command. "Head for the core. If we can't escape, we'll have to destroy it from within. We're not letting this thing reach Earth." Mira's voice came through the communicator, sounding strained but resolute. "Jackson, the core is unstable. If you go near it, you'll trigger the ship's self-destruct sequence. It's already starting to break down after the EMP. The ship will collapse in on itself." Jackson nodded grimly, tightening his grip on his weapon. "We don't have a choice. We either stop it here, or it stops us." The team made their way to the heart of the mothership. As they approached the core, the ship began to tremble, its vibrations becoming more violent. Strange metallic sounds echoed from all sides, like the ship itself was groaning in pain, as if trying to throw them off its trail. "We're almost there," Jackson yelled, voice sharp with urgency. "Keep moving." But as they neared the core's chamber, the atmosphere shifted again. The walls closed in, the temperature rising as the inner workings of the ship reacted to their presence. It wasn't just a fight against the creature anymore. It was a fight against the very ship that had been its prison. The floor shook violently, and suddenly, the entire corridor collapsed, cutting them off from their escape route. "Get down," shouted Sergeant Caldwell, as the team dove for cover just in time. The ceiling buckled, revealing glowing, pulsating tendrils that extended like alien veins through the walls. "Jackson!" Mira cried out through the radio, panic creeping into her voice. "The ship's reactors are going critical. If you don't shut it down in time, the explosion will destroy everything, Earth included." Jackson's mind raced. They were running out of time. Earth wasn't just fighting a single enemy anymore. It was fighting against the very technology that had held this entity for centuries. The mothership was collapsing, and if it detonated, it would take everything in its wake. Suddenly, the creature's voice returned, this time softer, almost mocking. "You cannot stop what has already begun. The Empire was nothing more than a tool to release us. The galaxy is ours now." Jackson didn't care. There was only one thing on his mind: Survival. With a swift motion, he activated the team's final, most dangerous weapon, a series of energy disruptors built specifically to interfere with the core's systems. Mira had designed it, knowing it was a long shot, but it was their last hope. "Everyone, on me," Jackson shouted. "We make our stand here." The team moved as one, charging toward the reactor core. The creature's form flickered in and out of existence, its glowing red eyes watching them with growing amusement. It seemed to toy with them, knowing they were close, but it didn't strike immediately. It was as if it was enjoying the inevitable approach of their final moments. But just as the creature lunged toward them, Jackson activated the disruptors. The core, its power contained in ancient alien energy, began to sputter and wane. The entire ship groaned under the pressure, the walls shaking violently. Then, with a sudden surge, the disruptors released a pulse of energy so powerful that it seemed to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. For a moment, everything went still. The core flickered. Then it exploded. The shockwave sent Jackson and his team flying, but the blast didn't reach Earth. It was absorbed, contained within the mothership's own system. The ship's self-destruct sequence triggered immediately, sending out a pulse of energy that began to collapse the mothership from within. "We've done it," Sergeant Caldwell shouted, struggling to his feet as the ship's walls cracked and bent. But the creature wasn't finished yet. In the center of the room, the being hovered in the air, its form dissipating, warping into something else, a dark, formless void. "You have delayed the inevitable," it whispered, voice growing weaker as the ship fell apart. "The Empire was only the beginning. We will return." And then, as if the very presence of the creature had been tied to the ship itself, it vanished. The mothership, now severely damaged, began to disintegrate, crumbling in on itself like a dying star. "Everyone, move," Jackson ordered. The team scrambled toward the escape pods, their path illuminated by the fading light of the ship's systems. But as the walls collapsed and the last remnants of the mothership began to burn, they knew this wasn't just the end of the ship. It was the beginning of something else. The resistance force, the mysterious fleet that had reached out to them, was still on its way. Earth wasn't alone anymore, and the universe had just seen what humanity was capable of. The fight was far from over, but Earth had made its mark. As the escape pods shot into space, the final fragments of the mothership burned up in the atmosphere, disappearing into the void. Jackson leaned back in his seat, watching the ruins of the ship disappear in the distance. The mission was over, but the war had only just begun. Humanity's victory and mourning. The stars outside the escape pod's small porthole flickered as Jackson and his team drifted away from the destroyed remnants of the mothership. The ship that had once loomed over Earth like an unstoppable force had now been reduced to fragments, scattered across the vast emptiness of space. But Jackson knew that what they had just witnessed was not the end. It was only the beginning of something far bigger than they could comprehend. He leaned back in his seat, exhausted, his body bruised and battered from the chaos of the mission. Around him, his team sat in silence, all of them still processing the shock of what had just happened. Lieutenant Chen, Sergeant Caldwell, and Mira Patul were all staring out the porthole, their eyes fixed on the distant horizon, as if they were looking for something, anything, out there in the cold expanse of space. "We did it," Mira said quietly, almost to herself. "We stopped them. But did we really win?" Jackson didn't answer immediately. He had seen the fear in Mira's eyes when they realized the creature wasn't just a soldier or a leader. It was something ancient. It had spoken of an even greater power, a force lurking beyond the Empire, something that had been imprisoned for centuries. If that creature's warning was to be believed, Earth had only scratched the surface of a much larger conflict. "We've bought ourselves some time," Jackson said finally, his voice calm but carrying the weight of their shared experience. "But that's all we've done. The Empire won't stop, and neither will whoever they were working for." The escape pod was silent for a few moments. the only sound the quiet hum of its engines as they sped away from the burning wreckage of the mothership. The weight of the decision still pressed down on them. The EMP disruptor had done its job, disabling the mothership long enough for the strike team to reach the core and plant the device that destroyed it from within. But the true cost of their victory hadn't fully settled in. "Jackson, we need to send a message." Lieutenant Chen spoke up. Her eyes narrowed, determination hardening her features. "We can't just let this go. Earth needs to know what happened. We need to warn them." Jackson nodded. "You're right. We can't let the world believe this is over. We can't afford to underestimate the Empire or whatever else is out there." As the pod hurtled through space toward Earth, Jackson prepared himself for the task ahead. They had to get the truth out to every corner of the planet. Humanity had been tested, and they had shown that they could stand up to an overwhelming threat. But now, they had to prove that they could continue to stand together, united, in the face of an even greater danger. Back on Earth, the world was still reeling from the aftermath of the Galactic Empire's brief but devastating encounter with humanity. Across the globe, people had begun to rebuild, to come together in ways they hadn't before. The shock of the alien invasion had united humanity in a common cause, a fight for survival. But just as quickly as the threat had come, it had disappeared. The mothership was gone. The Empire was defeated, or so they thought. The world's leaders had already begun to make plans, talking about peace and rebuilding. The global defense network had been overhauled, and many believed Earth was safe, that the worst was behind them. But the truth was more complicated than that. Humanity hadn't won. They had only survived. When the message was broadcast across the planet, it was simple, clear, and chilling. "This is Earth. To any who are listening, you may have seen our planet fall to the Galactic Empire. You may have believed we were a primitive species, unworthy of notice. But we fought back. We survived. And we will never stop fighting for our home. If you wish to bring war to our doorstep again, you will find we are no longer the weak, helpless species you assumed we were." The voice on the broadcast was Jackson's. He stood with Mira, Lieutenant Chen, and the rest of the team in a command center back on Earth, the camera trained on them as they delivered their message. His face was hard, resolute. There was no fear left in his eyes, only the certainty that humanity had changed. Earth had made it through this trial, and they weren't going to roll over in the face of any further threats. The message didn't just go out to Earth. It reached beyond, broadcasting far into space, across the same channels the Galactic Empire had once used to communicate with the planet. It was a signal to any galactic power listening. "We are here. We will fight. And we will not be conquered." Jackson's words rang through every broadcast system on Earth. "Earth stands as one. We are no longer afraid." As the message echoed across the globe, a sudden shift in the galaxy was felt. The signal sent ripples through space, a declaration of humanity's resilience, one that could not be ignored. At the edge of the solar system, far beyond the reach of the humans' understanding, a distant fleet, one that had been waiting, observing, paused. The message had reached them. A quiet murmur of acknowledgement passed through the fleet's communication channels. They had been watching, waiting for this moment. They had seen humanity rise up against the Empire. And now, they had a choice, to approach or to retreat. For the first time, Earth wasn't alone. The message Jackson and his team had sent wasn't just a warning to the Empire. It was a declaration to all the stars, to any power in the galaxy that would dare challenge humanity. Back on Earth, as the team watched the broadcast reach its conclusion, Mira looked up at Jackson, her voice barely audible. "Do you think they'll come?" Jackson didn't answer right away. He looked out the window at the stars, feeling the weight of the question pressing down on him. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth had made its mark on the galaxy, and it wasn't about to let the universe forget it. "We'll be ready," he said finally. "If they come, we'll be ready." The screen faded to black. the final message left to linger in the minds of every person on Earth and to echo across the stars. This is Earth. We fought back. And next time, we will come for you.